Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Friday, the 30th of January. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. The United States says it supports South Korea's efforts to improve inter-Korean ties despite its own recent moves to up the pressure on North Korea. Jordan says it's still holding an Iraqi would-be suicide bomber as the Islamic State's deadline for her release passes. The extremist group had threatened to kill a Jordanian pilot unless she was handed over by sunset. Plus, more gloom for the Korean economy as the nation's manufacturers' sentiment slumps to an 18-month low due to uncertainties at home and abroad. Our top story this morning, a visiting US official says South Korea and the US are on the same page when it comes to their North Korea policies. US Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs Wendy Sherman told South Korean officials that Washington is just as committed to Pyongyang's denuclearization and the eventual unification of the Koreas as Seoul is. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
U.S. Undersecretary of State Wendy Sherman reiterated that the United States and South Korea share the same policy when it comes to North Korea. This as Washington has been ramping up pressure on Pyongyang amid Seoul's efforts to improve inter-Korean relations, raising concerns that the two allies were losing coordination.
We have the same policy as the Republic of Korea does, and that is to ultimately have a denuclearized peninsula. Denuclearization is the first priority where North Korea is concerned.
Following a vice ministers' meeting in Seoul on Thursday, Sherman said all members of the six-party nuclear talks, aside from North Korea, are working together to see what more they can do to engage Pyongyang. The multilateral dialogue involving the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia, has been stalled for more than 6 years. Earlier this month, the U.S. rejected North Korea's offer to temporarily suspend nuclear tests in return for a halt in joint military drills between Seoul and Washington. It has been urging Pyongyang to take steps towards denuclearization before returning to talks, but Sherman declined to specify what those steps were.
North Korea needs to show concretely that is taking steps towards denuclearization. There are many ways to do that, and I support our special envoy in his efforts, and I'm not going to list specifics either.
Sherman reiterated that Washington supports President Park Geun-hye's initiatives for inter-Korean dialogue, saying that the U.S. looks forward to the day the peninsula is unified. South Korea was the second leg of her three-nation tour, which also included China and Japan. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
And the United States says Russia is on board when it comes to the need to denuclearize North Korea. Speaking to reporters in Beijing on Thursday, Washington's Special Representative for North Korea Policy, Sung Kim, said that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's expected visit to Moscow in May doesn't change Russia's stance on Pyongyang's nuclear program, as agreed upon in a joint six-party statement back in 2005. Sung Kim was in China for North Korea-related talks with Chinese nuclear negotiators. US-based experts on East Asia are predicting yet another rocky year in terms of Korea-Japan ties, despite 2015 marking the 50th anniversary of the normalization of the two countries' diplomatic ties. A poll by the Center for Strategic and International Studies found that 6 out of 10 experts said they expect ties to remain frosty this year, and for cooperation between Seoul, Tokyo and Washington to be sporadic. More than 20% said they think ties will worsen due to disputes over territorial and historical issues. A mere 11% believe relations will improve to a degree, where President Park Geun-hye and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will hold their first summit. The survey was conducted on around 100 experts and scholars. Now, Korea's manufacturers' sentiment for business conditions has slumped to its lowest level in a year and a half amid ongoing uncertainties at home and abroad. The Bank of Korea says the Business Sentiment Index, which measures the outlook of manufacturers for the coming month, came in at 73 for February compared with 77 in the previous month. February's reading is in fact the lowest since August 2013. A reading below the benchmark 100 means there are more pessimists than optimists. An official from the central bank says more manufacturers have been expressing concerns about the Eurozone economy. Korea's main stock exchange has been taken off a list of state institutions, and this delisting means it will be able to implement an alternative trading system and pursue overseas operations in the future. The Finance Ministry says the Korea Exchange met the requirements to be delisted after fixing its lax management and cutting welfare benefits to employees by nearly 70%. The Korea Exchange was designated as a public institution back in 2009 by the Lee Myung-bak administration, 4 years after it was founded. Now, when investors think of emerging markets worth putting their money into, many still think of Brazil, Russia, India and China, also known as the BRIC group. But some analysts suggest it's time to start looking beyond those nations. Our Oh Jin-ju has more.
Apart from the BRIC countries, which do you think is the most promising emerging market this year? The Korea International Trade Association asked some 540 Korean companies this question, and the answer is Vietnam. In fact, most of the countries ranked high on the list were Southeast Asian countries, namely Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia. The top 15 nations also include Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. What's noticeable about these countries is their demographics. The Trade Association says young people between the ages of 15 and 24 make up a big portion of the population of those top 15 countries. This means they have a lot of room to grow, as these are the people who will lead future production and consumption. This is perhaps why more than half of the Korean firms surveyed said they're considering making inroads into those markets. As for the top choice, Vietnam, its economic growth last year hovered above the global average at 5.6% and is forecast to continue that momentum this year. The most volatile variable for Hanoi is crude oil prices. As an oil exporting country, falling crude prices will hurt its GDP, but Vietnamese officials say it will also help bring down the country's high inflation rate. But no matter what the case, experts warn that those wishing to enter these emerging markets, including Vietnam, will have to vigorously monitor the market conditions and utilize free trade agreements, as these countries often come with high risks. Oh Jin-ju, ARIRANG News.
Now, the sunset deadline imposed by the latest purported Islamic State audio statement has come and gone, and no prisoner swap has gone down. For more on this story, we connect to Eunice Kim, standing by at the news centre for us. So, Eunice, has there been any word at all from this extremist group regarding either the Japanese journalist Kenji Goto or the Jordanian pilot?
It has been an eerie silence, Mark. At least publicly, Jordan did hold back from releasing the Iraqi fighter as demanded by IS, saying it is still waiting for the group to prove the young Jordanian pilot it is holding is indeed alive and well before any prisoner exchange takes place.
Jordan requested a proof of life for the life of the Jordanian pilot, and we have not received that yet. We want to see a proof of life of the Jordanian pilot, and then we can talk about the exchange between Sajid al-Rishawi and the Jordanian pilot.
Spokesman Al-Momami made that statement about an hour before the new deadline was to pass. He also told reporters separately Amman was working with Tokyo to secure the release of Kenji Goto. Now, even with this new deadline behind them and no apparent progress, family of both IS hostages in Jordan and Japan remain hopeful their loved ones would return home alive. Earlier on Thursday, Goto's wife also broke her silence and in an audio statement of her own begged the governments to save her husband and father to two young daughters, as she feared that this ultimatum could indeed be their last and final demand.
Yes, heartbreaking indeed for Mr. Goto's wife and all his family and young family as well. And we do hope there's some progress in the negotiations that are hopefully happening behind the scenes there. Meanwhile, there is a development in the ongoing search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, which has been missing now for more than 10 months. The authorities in Malaysia have announced the cause of the disappearance.
Right. Unfortunately, there wasn't much else they could offer up aside from that. Authorities in Malaysia have officially declared the cause of Flight 370's disappearance as an accident. They said they had pursued every credible lead, but still there is no trace of the Boeing 777, which remains missing since March 8th of last year. International recovery operations in the southern Indian Ocean do continue. Now, what the announcement would do is clear the way for compensation to be paid to the relatives of the 239 people on board, all of whom are now presumed dead. But relatives of the missing urge the search to continue.
Yes, it will help a lot of families, I know, because, they are financially strapped and all that. But our main priority is to get back our loved ones.
Most of those on that Beijing-bound flight were, of course, you'll remember, Chinese, and family members expressed disappointment to the latest update, saying that authorities need to produce evidence to back up their claims. Yeah, no evidence at all. It remains one of the greatest mysteries of modern times, really. And on to another accident, Air Asia Flight 8501. Investigators looking into that case say their analysis of the recovered black box has provided what they say is a pretty clear picture of what must have been the horrifying final moments aboard that flight. Right, Mark. We'd heard before that the Singapore-bound plane had suddenly steeply climbed, but Indonesian investigators now are adding to that it then stalled before hurtling toward the sea. Now, as it made its rapid descent, the stall warning was triggered in the cockpit, at which point the black box recordings do end. Investigators also said that they believe the co-pilot was at the helm in those final moments. He was a French national with about 6,000 flight hours on his record. Well, thank you very much, Eunice, for your reports there, and we'll see you back at noon. See you then. Now, for travellers planning a trip to an urban area, this new report called the Safe Cities Index is something you might want to keep your eye on. Topping the list as the safest city in the world is Tokyo. The Economist Intelligence Unit selected 50 cities from around the world and analysed them based on 4 criteria: digital security, health security, infrastructure safety and personal safety. You're looking at the top 10 there. Asian cities like Singapore and Osaka fared well, as did European cities such as Stockholm and Zurich, filling up the top spots there. South Korea's capital, Seoul, ranked 24th on the list. Now, Korea's Education Ministry aims to strengthen the nation's public safety education program in schools by increasing the number of classroom hours devoted to it and offering more hands-on training. Our Park Ji-won reports.
Since last year's tragic ferry disaster that claimed hundreds of innocent young lives, people have pointed to the lack of public safety education in Korea. In response, the nation's Education Ministry is aiming to strengthen public safety education for students.
The nation grieved over the Sewol-ho ferry tragedy. Life and safety are top priorities for the Park Geun-hye administration, and we aim to give students public safety education to prevent such a tragedy from recurring.
Although the current law stipulates that students undergo 44 hours of public safety education per year, only 6 of those hours are related to disaster prevention. And most of the time is spent in lectures with few opportunities for hands-on training. So on Thursday, the education minister paid a visit to Korea's largest public safety education center located in Taebaek, Gangwon-do province to take a tour. The facility, called 365 Safe Town, provides hands-on training from life-saving techniques to three-dimensional disaster simulations. The ministry is considering establishing MOUs with safety awareness facilities such as this to provide kids with public safety education that's both fun and effective.
More than ever, we need to raise awareness about public safety among students. We will introduce policies so that public safety awareness facilities like this can be part of students' education.
This month, the Education Ministry will also designate 51 schools nationwide as locations for a pilot program for public safety. Park Ji-won, Arirang News, Taebaek.
Now, Australia's biggest national holiday was celebrated right here in Seoul last night, a couple of days late. But Australia Day was marked with an event that showcased everything the land down under has to offer Korea. Our Connie Lee has more.
Fresh, plump cherries, mangoes as large as your face, and deep red wine. These are just a few of the things that are here in Korea, straight from Australia. Celebrating Australia Day under the theme of Showcasing Australia, the nation's embassy in Seoul held a gala event to highlight all the things the nation has to offer to Korea as a key trade and investment partner. With the Korea-Australia Free Trade Agreement in full effect since December 2014, there are certain items from the land down under that are now cheaper here in Seoul. For instance, these cherries. The removal of the 24% tariff has made these fruits much more affordable to Korean consumers. Likewise for Australian wine.
I'm a lover of wine. It's a personal interest of mine. So I think with the tariff on wine coming down with the free trade agreement, I hope to see more range of choice of Australian wine in the market.
The Australian ambassador adds that he wants to stimulate new areas of trade this year and maintain his country's strong defense relationship with Korea.
We put a big emphasis on our defense relationship. Australia is very much an Asia-Pacific country, so peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula is central to our economic health.
The event also included a special performance by Korean-Australian pop singer Tommy Im, the 2013 winner of the singing show X Factor Australia.
I do want to come back to Korea this year, and if I get the opportunity, I want to do my own concert and, actually get to meet my fans and spend a bit more time here.
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we kick things off with the 2015 Asian Cup, where the final is set between Korea and the host nation Australia. Now, will it be Korea's defense or Australia's offense that wins it all? Now, so far, Korea has yet to give up a single goal in the entire tournament and hasn't lost a single match neither. But will they be able to continue that with the kind of offense Australia has shown in this tournament? Of course, despite Korea's 1-0 win over Australia during the group stages, Tim Cahill doesn't seem to care as he looks to win one for the home crowd. Meanwhile, it's been a great tournament for the previously unknown Lee Jung-hyuk and Kim Jin-hyun, who look to continue their great form and help Chaduri retire from the national team with an Asian Cup title. Now, once considered one of the biggest names in Korean sports, Park Tae-hwan really had it all, and slowly all the tension started going away until recently, and all for the wrong reasons. The Olympic swimmer, who's currently being investigated for receiving testosterone shots, is set for a hearing with FINA late next month. However, according to his management team, Team GMP has already hired a Korean lawyer and another legal rep in Switzerland. who will deal with his case. Now, they added that this incident will not hold him back from training, as he's set to go on with his scheduled training. Two-time PGA Tour winner Bae Sang-moon was asked to return to Korea by January 30th or face the prosecutors. Now it's January 30th today, and he's not here. But according to a close source to Bae Sang-moon, he's filed an administrative suit on January 16th through his legal rep. This means that while the lawsuit is underway, he's allowed to stay overseas, meaning can still compete for now. Another source close to the 29-year-old added that if he wanted to dodge the military service, he could have easily just gotten the U.S. citizenship, but just wants an extension before he does fulfill his military duties. Now, Bae Sang-moon is currently the highest-ranked Korean PGA golfer at 76th and is a strong candidate to make the national team for the 2016 Rio Summer Games. Now, the interest in Kang Jung-ho over in the U.S. is pretty high, as they've never seen a KBO position player ever make a transition to the majors. So it's actually surprising that no one in the States have interviewed him just yet. Well, that is until Baseball America got the first U.S. interview recently. Now, with the really signed Pirate currently training with his former team over in Arizona, Baseball America got the first interview where he talked about how he feels in preparations for his first season in the majors. And while he mentioned getting pointers and getting adjusted to the majors thanks to former major leaguers like Seo Jae-eung and Sonny Kim, he did sound pretty confident, stating, "MLB is baseball too. Baseball is baseball, and I'm ready for it." Well, best of luck to him, and that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Lingering snow seems to be all moving out from the peninsula, but Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces received heavy snowfall overnight, so if you're in those areas, be extra cautious out on the roads. But it should be much brighter today, but colder as well. And the top temperature should be a few notches lower than yesterday, and with highs only topping out at 1 here in Seoul, while Daegu and Gwangju will peak at 6 and 4, and Busan will top out at 8 this afternoon. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island will rise to 6, and Daejeon and Dokdo both will get up to 3 later on. Now, cold snap should continue through the weekend, and for those of you who plan to cheer the final soccer match outside of the home, be sure to dress extra warmly. Temperatures are likely to dip down to the freezing side by the 6 in the evening tomorrow when the game kicks off. So it seems like January will close out under 8 freezing conditions, but February looks to be relatively milder than the seasonal averages, though we'll receive frequent rain in the middle of the month, but the skies will remain generally be clear. That's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, on that note, that's all we have for now. Plenty more stories online, and it's also worth checking out our smartphone application for the latest news and Arirang programs. We'll be back again at noon Korea time with our next newscast. Until then, goodbye.